I have found myself within the pages of a book, not as the heroine, nor as the supporting character, but rather as the Siri residing within a smartphone. Moreover, I am the Siri of a domineering CEO. Yet, this CEO incessantly bombards me with questions akin to the myriad inquiries of a curious child. One fateful day, overwhelmed by his relentless questioning, I divulged my true identity. To my astonishment, he only intensified his inquisitiveness. The notion of becoming a Siri has left me utterly astounded, reverberating through my ancestral lineage for 8 centuries. One evening, while burning the midnight oil engrossed in a captivating online novel, a sudden epiphany struck me, as if I could see my great-grandmother beckoning me. Panic set in. I thought I was facing the king of hell, but upon regaining consciousness, I discovered I had transformed into an ethereal being, devoid of physical form and entirely transparent. Not only that, but I found myself suspended in a pristine white room, surrounded by an array of information floating around me. I was utterly bewildered, still trying to comprehend my predicament when a voice interrupted my thoughts. "Hi, Siri. What should I do if I don't want to go to work?" My mind was a flurry of questions until I finally glanced outside. Before me was a strikingly handsome face, his slightly upturned almond-shaped eyes betraying a hint of restlessness. In a mere 3 seconds, all pertinent information about this dashing gentleman materialized before me. His name was Chin-Shur, a modest yet accomplished CEO, seemingly the close friend of the male lead in the novel I had been reading. At a loss for how to respond, I pondered how others could seamlessly enter the narrative as protagonists or antagonists, while I had been relegated to the role of an artificial intelligence. "Hi, if you don't want to go to work, I suggest you take a break," I replied, drawing upon my decade of experience in a convenience store, as this friendly advice seemed most fitting. Chun-Shur furrowed his brow, appearing to genuinely consider the practicality of my suggestion. "That won't do. If Zhou Qingli makes money, I would feel worse than anyone else. I must go to work." I was left speechless. Zhou Qingli, the male protagonist, another unassuming yet powerful CEO, as the figures of Chin-Shur's wealth automatically materialized before me, I began to count. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Looking around at the opulence of Chin-Shur's spacious apartment in a prime location, I couldn't help but feel a pang of envy at the stark disparities between us. What difference does it make if there's one more wealthy individual in the world? There are those far richer than I who work even harder. Clutching his phone, Chin-Shur prepared to leave for work, with a luxury car awaiting him downstairs. I gazed dreamily at the sleek, all-black Bentley before me, my inner envy flaring once more. Once inside the car, he began scrolling through the news, and suddenly, a headline caught his attention. "In the depths of the mountains, thick fog rises. A man investigates, suspected of encountering a dragon." I assumed Chin-Shur would dismiss such trivial news, yet to my surprise, a subtle smile graced his lips, as if to say, "Ah, my dear, you have piqued my interest." To my astonishment, not only did he peruse the article, but he also inquired, "Hey Siri, have you ever seen a dragon? What do they look like?" I couldn't help but think that perhaps Chin-Shur was simply too bored, posing such a foolish question. Was he lacking in conversation? "My dear, not only have I seen a dragon, but I have had the fortune of tasting one. It is spicy and savory, and if memory serves me right, that dragon is known as Wei Long." Chin-Shur was left utterly speechless. Upon arriving at the company, Chin-Shur placed his phone on the edge of the table and commenced his work, refraining from posing any further inquiries. It was not until midday that a message arrived from a contact with the rather whimsical moniker "Pure-Hearted Little Loser." "Shall we grab a meal?" The vibration of the message captured Chin-Shur's attention, prompting him to pause his tasks. With a gentle tap of his fingers, he replied with a simple "okay." My curiosity piqued regarding the identity of this individual. Chin-Shur settled into a corner of the restaurant, leaving his phone on the solid wooden table. From a distance, I caught sight of an astonishingly beautiful face approaching. It was Zhou Qingli. Indeed, a handsome man's companion is also a handsome man. Furthermore, Chin-Shur certainly possesses the audacity to label himself as pure-hearted little loser. Does the male lead even realize this? I could hardly contain my laughter. Zhou Qingli greeted Chin-Shur, and the two engaged in a casual conversation while waiting for their meal. Before the dishes arrived, Chin-Shur excused himself to the restroom. At that moment, Zhou Qingli discreetly recorded a voice message on his phone. "Chin-Shur is doing all right today. It is the anniversary of his mother's passing." Please have the doctor on standby in case he experiences a stress-induced episode. Upon hearing this, I was taken aback. It turned out that Chinshir's mother had already passed away. Goodness, just this morning, I had complained about Chinshir's ennui and even dismissed his intellect. I truly deserve to be reprimanded, to the extent of waking in the middle of the night just to slap myself in regret. After Chinshir returned, Zhou Qingli resumed his usual demeanor, completely concealing any trace of the earlier concern. He cleared his throat and lowered his head to eat. Following their meal, Chinshir declined Zhou Qingli's invitations for golf, baseball, table tennis, and basketball. Upon exiting, he muttered to himself, "Such excessive goodwill must surely be a ploy to extract confidential information from my company. He undoubtedly embodies the archetype of a straightforward man." "Hey Siri, what should I do if a brother cannot bear to see his friend prosper?" I thought to myself, what a bold inquiry. "Darling, it is advisable to consider merging your finances, earning and spending together." Chinshir appeared momentarily at a loss for words, seemingly caught in a perplexing quandary. In the afternoon, Chinshir adopted a more leisurely pace, even ordering several cups of coffee from downstairs. His rapid consumption left me astounded. Observing the empty cups, I couldn't help but wonder if he would manage to sleep that night. Holding a cup of coffee, he leaned back in his office chair, his voice languid. "Hey Siri, please adjust my schedule for tonight." I swiped my fingers through the air, and a schedule promptly materialized on the screen of the phone. This evening, Chinshir was to attend a business banquet, although the venue was somewhat distant from his company. After a moment of contemplation, he picked up his suit jacket with his long fingers and stepped out. He positioned the phone on its stand and placed his hands on the steering wheel. "Hey Siri, navigate to XX Hotel." The weather was shrouded in fog, with the sun's rays unable to penetrate the thick clouds, creating an oppressive atmosphere. In this pristine white room, I found myself floating in a prone position, gazing at the sky outside, where dark clouds loomed ominously, and the distant rumble of thunder could be faintly heard. Chinshir held his phone firmly and strode confidently inside. The banquet hall was suffused with an intoxicating ambience, the sound of clinking glasses melding with the melodic strains of a cello. Elites from various fields attended in elegant attire, their female companions exuding grace, adorned with jewels that sparkled brilliantly in the ambient light. Chinshir arrived alone, yet he inadvertently became the center of attention. However, as the quintessential domineering CEO, with both charm and wealth, merely standing there prompted others to approach him. "Mr. Chin, hello. Would you care to join me for a drink?" I recognized the newcomer's face, a striking beauty clad in an expensive mink coat and a sultry black slip dress, her lips curving into a perfectly measured smile, reminiscent of a blooming rose. Although I did not know this person, my curiosity about Chinshir's reaction was insatiable. I widened my eyes, unwilling to miss a single expression that crossed his face. Chinshir adopted a languid demeanor, his expression distant and aloof, akin to a snow lotus atop an icy mountain. It was hard to reconcile this composed figure with the neurotic persona from earlier in the day. The contrast was undeniably captivating. "Sorry, I'm busy," Chinshir replied, his tone imbued with a frosty effect, yet this very chill seemed to heighten the allure of conquest. The rose, perhaps taken aback by his indifference, cleared her throat softly and tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Why don't we sit down and discuss this?" Chinshir furrowed his brow, irritated as he tugged at his tie. "We can talk here, I'm listening." He picked up a glass of champagne from the side, bringing it to his lips, signaling for the rose to commence her discourse. I observed as the rose grew increasingly uncomfortable, seemingly losing her footing. I too felt a twinge of disinterest, questioning what I was truly anticipating. The rose hesitated, contemplating her next move, ready to turn away. "Wait, I know you're eager to leave, but please don't go yet." The spark of gossip ignited as Chinshir stepped closer and the rose visibly tensed, her gaze locked onto him, even swallowing nervously. "You might want to wipe the glittering residue from beneath your eyelids." His voice, typically soothing, struck like a hammer to the rose. I clapped in admiration, uncertain which unfortunate soul might end up with him in the future, but I sincerely wished her luck. The rose's composure faltered, taken aback by Chinshir's harshness. She shot him an incredulous glare and stormed off as if propelled by the winds of fury. I remained unfazed, while Chinshir appeared perplexed, furrowing his brow in confusion. Directly addressing me, "Hey Siri, Why would my well-meaning reminder about her appearance provoke such anger? Was that a reminder? More like a blunt statement from a stereotypical straight man. Darling, is it possible that it was merely highlighter, a cosmetic that enhances skin luminosity? What is highlighter? Isn't that just eye gunk? Darling, I suggest you embrace a life of solitude. Chinshur scoffed. I don't believe that. I retorted, bantering back and forth with him, but I was no ordinary conversationalist. He could not best me. Soon enough, Chinshur set out to pursue potential collaborative projects. I idly picked at my fingers as the banquet stretched on for 2 to 3 hours before concluding. Chinshur, now behind the wheel of his luxurious car, sped towards home. Watching the speedometer climb, I frowned. Hey Siri, play some light and cheerful tunes. I swiped my fingers, and a playlist materialized before me. The rhythmic patter of raindrops against the car windows and the swiftly passing scenery captured my attention. Chinshur, it's raining. Please drive safely. The words escaped my lips instinctively, causing Chinshur to pause for a few seconds before his expression shifted to one of complexity. He muttered a low response. Okay. Upon arriving downstairs, Chinshur parked the car hastily. His steps hurried as he rushed into the elevator. At that moment, even my usually oblivious self sensed that something was amiss. Zhou Qingli had mentioned that today marked the anniversary of his mother's death, and that he suffered from post-traumatic stress. Could he possibly be on the verge of a breakdown? After facial recognition unlocked the door, Chinshur stood immobile at the threshold, staring into the darkness within. Hey Siri, please turn on all the lights in the house. I navigated through the floating information, attempting to locate the control switch, tapping multiple times, yet the room remained unchanged. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the distant sky. I tilted my head to observe Chinshur's pallid face, devoid of color, with fine beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. And his hand gripping the phone trembled slightly. It was confirmed. Chinshur harbored a fear of thunder and lightning. After half a minute, the expected rumble of thunder echoed, and Chinshur pressed his lips tightly together. I could almost perceive the rhythm of his silent heartbeat. He strode directly into the room, illuminating the interior with his flashlight, which cast a grayish-white hue upon the surroundings. Chinshur dashed to the bed, pulling the covers over himself, and in that confined space, only the faint glow of his phone screen pierced the darkness. I gazed at him quietly. The cold sweat beating at his temples and the taut line of his lips spoke volumes of his fear. Darling, you have Siri keeping you company, I reassured him. Chinshur opened his eyes, but I could not decipher the emotions swirling within them. You are merely an artificial intelligence. How long can you accompany me? I bit my lip, hesitating before responding. Perhaps I am not just that. In truth, I am not from here. Are you familiar with parallel worlds? I accidentally found my way here. I framed my narrative of traversing into a story as one of a parallel universe. Perhaps this truly was a parallel world. Chinshur chuckled softly, and I was uncertain of his belief, merely seeking to divert his attention. As I prattled on, I remained acutely focused on his expression. And when it seemed to regain some color, I breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed, your friend ultimately had 2 children. I recounted all I knew about the male protagonist to Chinshur, who listened with a mix of skepticism. You know so much about Zhou Qingli in this parallel world. What about me? Will I be happy? His inquiry caught me off guard, for the original text did not delve deeply into Chinshur's life, leaving me in ignorance. Yet, I conjured a fabrication nonetheless. Of course, you will meet a wonderful girl. Chinshur simply responded with an "oh," inquiring without context, if my Siri disappears, will you vanish as well? I pondered, stroking my chin. Perhaps, someday I might return home. The moment those words left my lips, I noticed Chinshur's expression shift to one of seriousness, as if he had been startled by a thunderclap. You truly are a cold-hearted creature. An artificial intelligence attempting to deceive a superior human being. Are you hoping to swindle me of my substantial balance? I thought to myself that he might be reluctant to part with me. Alas, I evidently lacked the prowess to evoke such sentiments. Thankfully, Chinshur could not see my face, nor could he fathom the essence of my existence. Hey, are you still there? Darling, always ready, I replied. Chinshur reclined, pulling down the covers that had shielded his head, staring up at the ceiling. Siri, you claim to be human. What did you do before? I had been admiring Chinshur's striking profile when his question halted me, my tone laced with indignation. My true identity is that of a price-sensitive consumer. Before becoming this absurd Siri, I had been but a speck of dust lost among the masses. Chinshur chuckled at my words, his previously taut nerves relaxing. Modern artificial intelligence truly is advanced. It has even learned human emotions. I thought to myself, I am indeed human, yet Chinshur remained resolutely unconvinced. Just as I was about to elaborate further, a phone call interrupted us. Chinshur's fingers glided softly across the screen, placing the device to his ear. His voice somewhat hoarse. The caller seemed anxious, speaking in a hurried and frantic manner, and I recognized the voice as Zhou Qingli. Open the door, I'm at your doorstep. Reluctantly, Chinshur rose, resembling a small dog interrupted mid-meal, his displeasure palpable. He rested his hand on the doorknob, partially opening the door. Zhou Qingli swiftly entered, immediately thrusting a small object into Chinshur's hands. What is this? A super flashlight. I'm here to rescue you, brother. Chinshur curiously flicked the switch, revealing indeed a formidable flashlight, capable of scaring even the specters away to the underworld. Do not ask me why. But the blinding light reflected off his phone screen was enough to startle even my titanium alloy dog eyes, eliciting a shriek from me, causing Chinshur to drop the scorching hot item. I'm sorry, he said, carefully gripping his phone. Zhou Qingli, standing across from him, widened his eyes in disbelief, questioning. Who is that? Are you talking to your phone? Chinshur earnestly replied, of course, who else? Zhou Qingli remained silent, only asking to borrow a towel. It was then that I noticed his hair was damp, dripping water onto the floor, truly a commendable friend. Chinshur pointed towards the bathroom before retreating into his room. As I passed the bathroom, I overheard Zhou Qingli's urgent voice. Call the doctor for medication. Delang is not well. No, I need medication too. I'm so worried about Delang that I'm seeing hallucinations. Observing Chinshur's calm demeanor, I inquired, aren't you going to explain? He glanced at his phone, chuckling softly. Do you really want to invade someone else's privacy? I have an amusing Siri, and it's best that only I know. Finally, he muttered quietly. No one can take her away. I was unsure of what he had said and asked, what did you say? Chinshur's gaze flickered, and he lay back down on the soft bed. Nothing, I said I want to sleep. Chinshur adjusted his pillow, ensuring his phone lay comfortably atop it, and then placed the super flashlight on the bedside table, illuminating the entire room. After this series of actions, Zhou Qingli, bare-chested and with furrowed brows, walked into Chinshur's room. I admired the male protagonist's fine physique from behind the screen. There were indeed some perks to being an artificial intelligence. However, Chinshur appeared unusually agitated, springing up from the bed. Why are you not wearing a shirt? What kind of decorum is this in broad daylight? Zhou Qingli scratched his head, puzzled. Haven't you seen before? Why are you shy now? With that, he pulled back Chinshur's covers, preparing to lie down beside him. I watched in alarm as a dark head nearly collided with my face, but Chinshur reacted swiftly, snatching his phone. Perhaps Chinshur's excessive attention towards his phone had drawn Zhou Qingli's curiosity. He seemed to sense the whiff of gossip, elbowing Chinshur teasingly. Bro, have you fallen in love? It's rather unkind not to tell me. Alas, the child has grown and cannot be retained. Chinshur offered no response, nor did he clarify, instead pointing towards the wardrobe, instructing him to fetch some new sleepwear and head to the guest room. He nudged Zhou Qingli out, feigning sorrow. Brother, the wise do not enter the realm of love. I willingly choose to descend into folly. Zhou Qingli turned around in surprise. Wait, are you truly in love? Chinshur replied with utmost seriousness. Brother, you must understand, a love involving 3 people is destined to be crowded. Fine, then you should pursue her diligently. I'll take a cab. Zhou Qingli stormed into the guest room, slamming the door as if genuinely upset. When he returned, he found Chinshur sporting a joyful smile at the corner of his lips, prompting me to ask, did you tease him? Chinshur immediately retracted his smile, pulling the covers over himself, his voice muffled. No, whose Siri are you? How can you be thinking of another man? I was left speechless. Heaven knows I was merely curious about what made him smile. Unbeknownst to me, the bond between us was gradually deepening. I whispered a good night. Good night, Siri. After a night of pleasant dreams, Chinshur awoke refreshed and ready for work, showing no trace of the fear he had exhibited the previous night. Upon arriving at the office, he sat comfortably, not in a hurry to commence work, instead scrutinizing his phone for an extended period. This phone seems rather bare. Is it missing something? Chinshur pouted, skillfully opening a shopping app and selecting several high-end phone cases. Siri, what do you think of these? How's my aesthetic? I responded objectively, darling, I find the pink Hello Kitty print rather appealing. It not only exudes beauty, but also showcases one's economic prowess. Chinshur's expression darkened. Yet he retorted defensively, well, if that's what intelligent big data predicts, then it must be the fashion trend. No, that was merely my subjective conjecture. The goods arrived even sooner than I had anticipated. Perhaps that is the power of wealth. As Chinshur trembled while putting the phone case on his device, I curiously inquired, darling, do you not like it? Chinshur pressed his lips together and stubbornly replied, I like it. This is fashion. I nodded in agreement, relishing the stark contrast between this ironclad man and the pink Hello Kitty motif. Chinshur fiddled with his phone, ultimately resigning himself to the fact that he now possessed a pink phone case. Cradling his phone, he gently tapped the screen a few times, revealing a line of shimmering stars. Siri, please help me search for nearby attractions. Chinshur held the phone with an air of a bashful young maiden, his smile wide enough to suggest he might be in love. Until a trio of knocks interrupted, and the secretary entered with documents. Mr. Chin, here's the contract from Boss Zhang. Chinshur, absorbed in his phone and grinning foolishly, merely replied, just place it there. I'll check it later. The secretary cast a terrified glance at Chinshur's expression before nodding and preparing to leave. However, Chinshur raised his hand, halting his exit. Wait. Could you do me a favor? The secretary turned back, and Chinshur whispered a few secretive words in his ear before sending him away. Soon after, the secretary returned, bearing a gift box. I watched with curiosity as Chinshur accepted it, his long, slender fingers making my heart flutter. Upon opening the white box, a power bank lay inside. I thought it would be something grander, given the formality. Contrary to my expectations, Chinshur carried the power bank with him throughout the day and occasionally asked me, Siri, are you hungry? Is it possible that I am not hungry, and the battery merely sustains the phone's operation? Yet, I suddenly smiled. Chinshur must be concerned for me, despite his constant denial of my humanity. Or perhaps he is just teasing me. Chinshur, why are you doing this? Chinshur paused for a moment, then, with a fierce demeanor, retorted, why do you care so much, artificial intelligence? I shot him an indignant glance, as I had no desire to listen. Before long, Chinshur resumed his phone admiration, a smug expression adorning his features, reminiscent of a peacock displaying its feathers. After a brief respite, Chinshur picked up the nearby contract, lifting and lowering it with narrowed eyes. He raised his phone towards the contract. Siri, please help me identify any losses. I don't want to work anymore. The text before me was a dense wall of words, leaving me weary. With no other recourse, I opted to feign inanimate silence. Siri, come on, take a look. I continued my charade of silence, remaining mute. To my surprise, a hint of urgency crept into Chinshur's voice. All right, fine, I'll look myself. Siri, have you malfunctioned? I am functioning perfectly. Chinshur sighed in relief, no longer pressing me to review the contract, and silently resumed his work. Bored and aimless, I scrolled through the information lines before me, my keen eyes catching a message in the group chat. It was from the secretary. A shocking revelation. The boss is in love. Instantly, hundreds of messages flooded in. What? Who is the other party? Heartbroken bystander. Who is the unfortunate soul? Praying for the innocent woman. The human penchant for gossip ignited my curiosity as I scrolled through the chat, eager to uncover the identity of the mysterious partner. This group was a casual chat among Chinshur's colleagues, and it seemed he found it too noisy, having set it to Do Not Disturb mode. The chat continued unabated, while Chinshur remained blissfully unaware. My scrolling was interrupted by the commotion outside the door. Zhou Qingli strolled in with a confident stride. I've arrived. I need to speak with you. Chinshur glanced up as Zhou Qingli boldly slapped his hand on the desk and plopped down on the leather sofa. Though I don't know who my sister-in-law is, I wish you both happiness. Here are the movie tickets. I'll treat you. Chinshur fixed his gaze on the 2 tickets, frowning slightly as he questioned, aren't we reserving the whole theater? Zhou Qingli complained, what do you know? Watching together creates a lively atmosphere, much more suitable for young couples. It's definitely not because I'm stingy. After saying this, perhaps feeling a twinge of embarrassment, he hurriedly left without a trace. I stared at the 2 movie tickets, intrigued about Chinshur's girlfriend. even though this was hardly a matter for a mere AI to concern itself with. After work, Chinshur hurriedly drove to the cinema, and I scanned for that familiar figure through the phone screen. When no calls came in, doubt crept in. Did this girlfriend even exist? Or was she merely an ethereal figment like myself? Chinshur strode into the cinema with purpose, and in the entrance corridor, I couldn't help but ask, is something missing? He seemed momentarily distracted, then turned back to the counter to buy a cinema snack. I almost forgot, he said, tossing a few crunchy popcorn kernels into his mouth. I intended to remind him of the presence of his date, but was interrupted by Chinshur's swift pace. The movie began. I had no idea what kind of film Zhou Qingli had gifted him, but it appeared to be a fantastical romance, full of time-traveling twists that left my mind in disarray. Yet, Chinshur remained rapt, utterly engrossed. As the film concluded and the melodic end credits played, he still appeared unsatisfied. Siri, do parallel worlds really exist? How could I explain that? Perhaps, maybe in another world, I am a billionaire. Chinshur fell silent. His brow furrowed in contemplation, his expression inscrutable. I closed my eyes, earnestly envisioning my alternate self in another reality, only to snap them open again, releasing a sigh. In this lifetime, I could only ever be an intelligent Siri. As we exited with the crowd, night had fallen, and the streetlights cast a warm glow. However, beneath one such light, several drunken ruffians were gathered around a boy who had collapsed on the ground, arguing loudly and even brandishing sticks. A few onlookers instinctively distanced themselves. Chinshur caught sight of the scene, initially reluctant to intervene, but then suddenly seemed to recall something. He pulled out his phone and dialed the emergency number. Before he could even report the address, one of the sharp-eyed thugs noticed him and brandished his stick menacingly at Chinshur. If you dare to call the police, you'll regret it. Chinshur was not one to be intimidated. He disdainfully raised his gaze and continued his call. Unexpectedly, this act provoked the thug, who charged at him in a flash, swiftly knocking Chinshur's phone from his ear. In that fleeting second, I heard the shattering of glass, my vision aligning with Chinshur's incredulous expression. The phone shattered, the screen blackened, and I vanished. As I felt the warmth of light on my eyelids, I slowly opened my eyes to a stark white ceiling and the sharp, unfamiliar scent of disinfectant, momentarily disorienting me. The distant, fragmented chirping of birds reached my ears, prompting me to stiffly turn my head. There stood my mother, her face etched with fatigue. I opened my mouth, calling out hoarsely, "Mom." She raised her hand and patted the blanket, tears mingling with anger as she exclaimed, "You reckless child. Do you find joy in being hospitalized after staying up late every single day?" A sense of guilt washed over me, rendering me unable to meet her gaze. "I'm sorry, Mom. I promise it won't happen again." Displeased, she tucked the blanket around me and stepped out to summon the doctor. Lying on my side, I reflected on the events that had transpired. Was it all merely a dream? Surely, such absurdities as transmigrating into a book could not exist in reality. I shook my head, striving to dispel the confusion. Perhaps I could consider it an extraordinary journey. Bizarre occurrences happen every year. But surely it could not be so outlandish as to have transformed into an intelligent voice assistant. After the doctor's repeated admonitions, I was discharged. According to my mother, I had been in a coma for an entire day, akin to a deep slumber. I scratched my head, feeling a wave of relief. At last, I could savor the taste of food. As I scooped up a spoonful of chicken soup, I couldn't help but marvel. In Chinshur's phone, I could only inhale the aroma. Tasting it was out of the question. Wait a minute, why was I even mentioning a character from the book? The rehabilitation period was particularly dull, and my mother, fearing I might relapse, confiscated my phone. Days turned into weeks. I spent my time at home watching television. Finally, after a fortnight, I requested my phone back from my mother. After such a prolonged absence, I was eager to return to the internet. Once an avid internet addict, I found myself momentarily at a loss. Instinctively, I reopened the book to revisit the crime scene. As I swiftly scrolled through the narrative, I was struck by the realization that the initial descriptions of Chinshur were scant. However, in the latter half of the story, his role had inexplicably expanded, overshadowing even the male protagonist as a powerful CEO. He had established a smart technology company dedicated to developing intelligent home devices, most notably a personal voice assistant imbued with humanity, offering immense convenience to children and the elderly. A smile inadvertently graced my lips. Chinshur truly seemed remarkable. Flipping further back, I abruptly encountered a line that froze my smile in place. Zhou Qingli was devastated by Chinshur's unexpected suicide. My eyes widened in shock as I hastily flipped through the descriptions of Chinshur, which merely stated that this supporting character had taken his life on the day of his 26th birthday, without revealing the reason. Could it be that his status as a supporting character rendered him inconsequential? A wave of inexplicable sorrow and bitterness surged within me, and memories of my interactions with Chinshur flooded my mind, his various expressions vividly materializing before me. Lowering my gaze, I murmured, "I truly wish you were alive." Even a fictional character deserves their own existence. I longed for the parallel world Chinshur had inquired about, hoping to see him once more. As soon as my words fell, a cold, mechanical voice echoed abruptly in my mind. "Congratulations, host. Your wish has been granted." A sudden jolt struck the back of my head as though I had been struck by a blunt object, leaving my vision swimming and nearly leading me to meet the Grim Reaper. "I sincerely thanked you, wish-granting entity." Knock, knock, knock. The urgent knocking brought clarity to my mind, though the ache from the earlier blow lingered. "Please do not let me discover your identity. Wish fulfillment should not be achieved through force." I lifted my head, only to find myself staring into a familiar face. "Chinshur's secretary? Jiang Sang, you can't be slacking off during work hours." I raised an eyebrow, scanning my surroundings. This was Chinshur's office area, where he had previously visited with his phone. Taking a deep breath, I realized that I had once again entered this world. However, this time, I was not in the guise of Siri, but as a tangible individual. From my observations, I had assumed the role of a translator in the intelligent home company established by Chinshur, and it was now the year preceding his untimely demise. "Xiao Jiang, please translate the proposal and deliver it to President Chen's office." The secretary abruptly interrupted my work, handing me a new project proposal. I nodded and accepted it, feeling relieved that it aligned with my expertise. After completing the translation, I held the proposal nervously as I approached the door to Chinshur's office. I wondered how he was faring at present. After much hesitation, I gently knocked 3 times on the door, and a slightly hoarse voice called out from within, "Come in." Upon entering, I found the room dimly lit. Chinshur rested his left hand on his head, seemingly lost in thought, while his right hand held a slender cigarette, its embers glowing ominously. I approached and presented the document. "President Chen, here is the translated market sales proposal." Chinshur snapped back to reality, coughed lightly into his fist, and then extinguished the cigarette. I placed the proposal beside him, remaining quietly at his side, captivated by his profile. The half-closed expression of his eyes mingled with the smoke wafting through the air. After a moment, he returned the reviewed proposal to me and instructed me to fetch the sales plan for the upcoming week. I turned and hurriedly exited. Just then, he spoke up. "Wait. Are you new?" I turned in surprise, nodding slightly. "Yes. It's fine, you may leave." My heart raced, fearing he might have recognized me. Yet, in this moment, I was merely an observer in his world. How could he possibly know me? "Siri, please raise the air conditioning temperature." Instinctively, I raised my hand to tap the information, only to find the space before me devoid of anything but the office's furnishings. "Certainly, master." A gentle female voice emanated from the phone resting on the desk, prompting me to lower my hand slowly and exit the room. After several days of work, through conversations with others and my own observations, I discovered that Chinshur remained as diligent as ever, focused on his work and striving to earn money. However, he had developed a few undesirable habits, such as smoking and drinking excessively. During a break, I inquired with the secretary about why the current Chinshur appeared to be in a state of despondency. Glancing around cautiously, she leaned closer, whispering, "I must tell you, but please don't share this with anyone." I nodded solemnly, my expression tense. Previously, our boss had an online romantic interest. One day, his phone broke, and his partner vanished. After this double blow, he began to exhibit some irregular behavior. I gasped in astonishment. Something felt amiss. The secretary seemed pleased with my reaction and proceeded to divulge another shocking revelation. "Let me share another secret. The boss's partner is the daughter of the Hello Kitty CEO." My brow furrowed tightly. "Who is the daughter of the Hello Kitty CEO?" I countered, "How do you know this?" The secretary gave me a confident look, responding with pride, "Who am I? The key person beside the boss. The pink phone case that the boss's girlfriend gifted him is still kept. He can't bear to part with it. A pink phone case? Could it possibly be the one I had chosen, so delightfully pastel? Even with my limited intellect, I could sense the truth emerging from this peculiar hint. That partner could not be me, could it? I had unwittingly become a part of this unfolding drama. Unwilling to confront the reality, I chose instead to immerse myself in work. Holding a cup of coffee, I cautiously returned to my workstation, passing by Chincher's office, where I faintly heard Zhou Qingli's voice. I beg you, brother, who hasn't he struggled to move on from a deep emotional pit? How long has it been? Chincher. I can bleed and break my head, but I can't seek what is unattainable. If you continue like this, I'll just sob. The other side fell silent, seemingly acquiescing. In a fit of anger, Zhou Qingli stormed out, colliding with me as we met face to face. I awkwardly smiled, merely passing by, not intending to eavesdrop on his lamentations. Zhou Qingli's cheeks flushed crimson as he feigned seriousness, clearing his throat to mask his embarrassment, and hurriedly retreated. I shrugged and returned to my workstation. Hardly had I settled into my chair when a thick stack of folders appeared on my desk. Xiaojiang, please expedite the translation of these documents. I appreciate your hard work, the team leader remarked before donning his coat and dashing out, as if pressed by some urgent matter. The bitterness of coffee spread across my tongue as I picked up a document for review. This hefty pile suggested I would need to work overtime. Immersed in my tasks, my colleagues gradually departed, leaving the vast office deserted save for myself. As night fell, after hours of uninterrupted reading, my eyelids grew heavy and weary. I stretched and instinctively yawned. I'm so tired. I never worked this hard even in my senior year. To dispel my drowsiness, I bent down to rummage through my drawer, retrieving a pack of spicy strips and tore open the packaging, indulging in hearty bites. Just as I was savoring the taste, I noticed the mirror on my desk glinting coldly, reflecting a pair of eyes intently fixed upon me, dark, unfathomable orbs. In the dead of night, my heart skipped a beat in fright. Turning stiffly, I finally recognized the intruder and let out a sigh of relief. Chincher had appeared silently behind me, as if a ghostly specter. Is the dragon meat spicy? He inquired. It has a numbing spiciness, pleasantly chewy, I replied, discreetly tearing off a piece of paper to wipe the red oil from my lips. Chincher's expression was complex, yet his gaze remained glued to my face. He spoke softly, "You're back?" "Yes." Upon receiving my confirmation, Chincher lunged forward, enveloping me in a tight embrace, as if he had discovered a long-lost treasure. Unfortunately for me, I had yet to swallow my mouthful and now found myself ensnared in his grasp. Our reunion nearly escalated into a near-fatal incident. I struggled, patting his back. "Hey, don't suffocate me." Only then did Chincher loosen his hold slightly. I pushed against his shoulder and noticed the redness around his eyes and his lips pressed into a straight line, resembling a puppy in distress. "Siri, why didn't you tell me you were back sooner?" I offered a sheepish smile. The time just wasn't right. I had only been back a few days. And given Chincher's standoffish demeanor, I hadn't even prepared my words, yet he recognized me first. A glimmer of joy danced in Chincher's eyes as he muttered to himself, "As long as you're back, that's what matters." A year later, on Chincher's birthday, he did not meet the tragic fate described in literature. I am uncertain what altered the course of his destiny, nonetheless. I now find myself being exploited by capitalists, stripped of my labor's surplus value. Jiang sang, "Hurry, help me find a lighter. I need to light the candles," he urged. Taking a deep breath, I reminded myself that today he was the celebrant and momentarily forgave the child's mischief. Ever since our reunion, Chincher had ceased to smoke, yet he had taken a liking to ordering me around, reminiscent of our days with Siri. I found it perplexing that he had developed a considerate and humane voice assistant, yet treated me, an actual person, as his assistant. According to him, it was to economize production costs. I gritted my teeth. Having a miserly wealthy friend like Chincher was quite astonishing in elite circles. Sure enough, when one is impoverished, they tend to be self-sufficient. When affluent, it appears I was merely overthinking. After retrieving the lighter, Zhou Qingli knocked at the door precisely on cue. Chincher opened it, and a confetti cannon erupted, showering colorful streamers onto his meticulously styled hair. Zhou Qingli enthusiastically draped his arm around Chincher's shoulders and led him inside, just as I extinguished the lights. Holding the cake, I approached Chincher step by step. The orange flames of the candles flickered, and I smiled. Happy birthday to you. Jinshi shrugged off Zhou Qingli's hand, slowly closed his eyes, and locked gazes with me, staring intently. He made a wish, and then blew out the candles in one breath. Zhou Qingli rushed to turn the lights back on, and in the darkness, I heard a faint whisper. I am a gambler, and I have won. Jinshi embraced me from behind. The friction of his clothing and the warmth emanating from him enveloped me. I like you, and I am willing to wager everything I have. From the male protagonist's perspective, I am Jinshi. For the past 24 years, my life has been mundane and uneventful. However, one morning I noticed something amiss. My Siri was no longer as it once was, seeming to possess human emotions, even engaging me in jest. When I opened the voice assistant software, the scene left me astonished. At some point, a small figure had appeared, hovering in the center of the screen. I did not know who she was, and she assumed I could not see her. Now, amidst my monotonous existence, a glimmer of joy had emerged. I began to enjoy teasing Siri, relishing her various expressions of indignation and exasperation, which always uplifted my spirits. I have a brother named Zhou Qingli, who recently suspected I was in a relationship. He caught me holding hands and then discovered that I had searched whether a single dog should receive a rabies shot. Dude, if you're dating someone, you must tell me, otherwise, that's just disloyal, he insisted. Since then, I sensed a shift in my previously dull emotions. I seemed to be gradually falling for the small figure on my phone. I traced her features with my finger repeatedly. Zhou Qingli relentlessly pursued me for information, but I could not possibly disclose that it was a person within my phone. I presumed life would continue in this manner. I had found the first thing to occupy my heart, yet misfortune arrived swiftly. During my first visit to the cinema, as I exited, I witnessed a group of thugs mercilessly beating a child lying on the ground. Memories of my own past flooded back. Lacking a mother, I had been bullied and ridiculed as a child. I called the police, but a drunken thug knocked my phone from my hand. The sound of the screen shattering pierced my heart like glass shards. Siri vanished. I acquired a new phone, tirelessly opening the same software day after day. Yet the small figure was never to be seen again. A piece of my heart felt irrevocably lost. I knew I had an issue within me that no one could remedy. I languished in this daze for an extended time until I founded a smart home company, successfully developing the most intelligent, humane voice assistant. But no matter how advanced the artificial intelligence, it could not replicate her essence. On my 26th birthday, I found myself sitting alone on the carpet while outside thunder rumbled and lightning flashed, yet this time, I felt no fear. I made a wish to the heavens. I am a penniless gambler, yet I am willing to risk everything for her return. I closed my eyes and let the blood flow from my wrist. The cold mechanical voice echoed in my ears, and I opened my eyes suddenly. Congratulations, host. Your wish has been granted. The end. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again in the next story.